As my husband pushed the door open, I deliberately kissed the other man on the lips. He stood frozen, unable to believe that the woman who loved him so deeply could fall into another's arms. But I no longer cared. When the earthquake struck, he hung up my call for help and rushed to save a widow. While I was fighting for my life, a video of them embracing circulated widely in our community chat group, with everyone exclaiming, "So this is what undying love looks like." No one knew he was rescuing his unresolved love from his youth. And I, who had been by his side for 30 years, was left to fend for myself in the rubble. Chapter 1. If it weren't for this massive earthquake, I would never have realized that after 30 years, I still hadn't warmed Michael's heart. So, I made up my mind to get a divorce. Once the signal was restored and my message was sent successfully, I began packing my things. There wasn't much to pack, most of the stuff in the house belonged to Michael. I only had a few plain clothes. Since the earthquake, Michael hadn't shown any concern for me, and yet he called. "I told you to follow the community's instructions and rest. I'll be home to check on you once I'm done here." I didn't respond, just as he ignored me when I almost broke my phone screen trying to reach him. He said, "You know Mary has a weak heart, and with the kids not around, she can't protect herself. I had to look after her first." I replied, "Then take some time to come back while you're taking care of her, so we can handle the divorce." After hanging up, he continued calling. When I blocked him, he started sending messages to explain. "You know how sensitive Mary is. She hates troubling me. Since John's death, she's faced countless hardships alone. She needs someone by her side. Don't pay attention to the messages in the group." The quake scared her and she was trembling. I had to hold her. "Don't overthink it. And you're too old to be talking about divorce. Stay home and wait for me. I'll be back soon." I slowed down my packing. But no matter how slow I went, I eventually finished. The clock in the living room ticked away, but he didn't come home. Instead, I saw another message in the community group. Someone posted a photo of Michael tenderly feeding Mary porridge. "There's that sweet couple again. Their love is so touching." With no one to cook for her, he went to the hospital cafeteria to make porridge for her. Look at his arm, it's all burned. He must really care about her. My heart melts seeing this. I left the group and deleted him from my contacts. With my meager luggage, I closed the door to the house I'd lived in for so many years. Michael had always prided himself on being too dignified to cook for me. He said he didn't know how. Turns out, it wasn't that he didn't know, he simply didn't want to do it for me. The next day, I went to the hospital alone for a checkup. A chandelier had hit my head, and glass shards had cut my face. I thought I could tough it out, but the headache lasted all night. The doctor diagnosed me with a moderate concussion and prescribed expensive medication. In the past, I would never have spent that kind of money. But now, things were different. As I walked out of the clinic, I saw Michael's radiant smile. He gently caressed Mary's hand, almost clinging to her, while the doctors and nurses praised their deep and loving relationship. Michael didn't correct them, smiling even more until he saw me. His expression changed instantly. "Joyce, what are you doing here? Who told you to come?" Chapter 2. So what? Is this your hospital? Am I not allowed here? Michael frowned, detecting the sarcasm in my tone. He walked over and whispered in my ear. "I had a valid reason for not coming back yesterday. Did you have to chase me to the hospital? Are you spying on us? Why are you so jealous?" Already feeling terrible from the concussion, I just wanted to find my room, not waste words on him. "Doctor! Where's the doctor?" A man rushed towards us, carrying an injured boy on his shoulders, frantic and desperate. Instinctively, Michael pushed me aside to protect Mary. Unable to dodge in time, I fell, nearly crashing if not for a nurse blocking me. "Get up, don't block the patient's emergency path. I'll take Mary back to her room, then come find you." I slowly got up. "No need. Now you're pretending to be strong? If you had listened and rested at home, you wouldn't have caused me this trouble." His voice dripped with sarcasm as he helped the frail Mary away. I paid my bill and got my medication alone. Leaving the hospital, I saw Michael smoking at the entrance. He handed me a healing ointment, speaking gently. "I saw your face was injured. Use this, it's very effective." My expression turned cold. The bottle was clearly used, half empty. Seeing the small cuts on Mary's hand, I realized it was medicine she had used and discarded. I threw it straight into the trash. Staring at the shocked Michael, I said clearly, "Let's go get a divorce, Michael." His expression turned annoyed. "At our age, why make a fuss?" He looked around and pulled me into a corner. "Do you want to embarrass yourself further? And don't forget how you begged your father to make me marry you when you were younger. Decades have passed, and you're still shameless. I want to see how long you can keep this up." He spat with clenched teeth and walked away. I felt nothing but calm. Back then, Michael couldn't control himself, tricking me into a relationship. I got pregnant with his child, and in those days, premarital pregnancy was a disgrace. I had no choice but to ask my father to plead with Michael to marry me, and he reluctantly agreed. I was filled with love for him, following him north to start a business while pregnant, living in a tiny 5-square-meter apartment. Even in the freezing winter, I willingly washed his underwear and cooked for him. Later, when his business failed, I returned south with our young son, working to pay off debts for 10 years. Despite all my hardships, as long as Michael was by my side, I held on to hope. Until I found his locked diary. It recorded his long-standing love for Mary, his comrade's widow. Those passionate feelings, unspoken and confined to the diary, pierced my heart repeatedly. He had always taken meticulous care of his comrade's widow, who was his first love. Thinking of the years I treated Mary kindly, I felt sick. If my true feelings were wasted, I didn't want them anymore. I went to the bank to withdraw my money. But the teller told me there was nothing left. The withdrawal date coincided with Mary's heart surgery. Michael had used our son's accident compensation to pay for Mary's treatment. Chapter 3. I stormed into Mary's hospital room. Opening the door, Michael was joking with Mary, making her laugh. Thinking of how he only showed me a cold face at home, my heart sank. "Joyce, you're here. Why didn't you tell us? I would have asked Michael to pick you up." Seeing my dark expression, she continued with feigned innocence. "Joyce, don't blame Michael. It's my weak body. The earthquake cut the power, and knowing I'm afraid of the dark, he rushed over. Don't be upset, and don't argue because of me." Ignoring her, I questioned Michael. "Why did you touch that money? Don't you know it's the last memory I have of our son? What nonsense! He's gone. Better to use it to save Mary. If our son knew his Aunt Mary was cured, he would be comforted in heaven. I'm doing this for his sake. You don't understand." I bit my lip, trembling with anger. Years ago, Michael was speeding to see the sick Mary when he collided with a truck on the highway. Our son, sitting in the front seat, shielded him, taking the full brunt of the impact and passing away from his injuries. The truck company compensated us out of humanity. My son's passing was my lifelong pain, and that money was his last gift to me. Less than a year later, Michael spent it all and spoke so righteously. Hypocrisy at its peak. I couldn't stand their disgusting faces any longer and turned to leave. Michael grabbed me. "I can agree to adopt another child with you, but you have to wait 3 months. Once Mary is well, I want to take her on a trip to fulfill her postponed honeymoon." Mary married John, and soon after, he passed away. They never had a wedding trip. John was my good brother and comrade. I must fulfill his wish and take Mary to their promised places. After our son's passing, I developed insomnia, unable to sleep through the night. The doctor suggested Michael take me on a trip to ease my mind, but he dismissed it, saying, "Why spend that money? Just stay at home for a few days. You're being dramatic." And now he planned a trip with Mary, using the absurd excuse of fulfilling a friend's wish. I stared at them, marveling at their shamelessness, and laughed bitterly. "Do whatever you want. pleased with my understanding. Michael put his arm around my shoulder, saying softly, "Don't worry, it's all for John. Mary and I are innocent, and I'll be home soon." Feeling nauseated, I pushed him away and slammed the door behind me. The next day, I planned to visit my son's resting place when an unknown number called. A man's voice came through. "I'm Jack, a former comrade of Michael's. Do you remember me?" I instinctively hung up, shocked. Jack? Mary's husband, who supposedly passed away over a decade ago. How could he still be alive? What was going on? Chapter 4. Unlike Michael, who was discharged early for misconduct, Jack stayed in the army and became an officer. During a mission, Jack went missing. Although his body was never found, everyone assumed he was dead. We met, and he was eager to find Mary. He explained that he had been rescued after the accident and lost his memory. He lived as a farmer for decades, refusing all marriage proposals because he always had a woman's image in his mind. Recently, he regained his memory and couldn't reach Mary or Michael, so he asked for my help. Seeing his worn face, my heart softened. Despite not wanting to contact that pair again, I picked up my phone. But then I saw a message from Mary. "Joyce, Michael took me home to care for me. I told him I was fine, but he insisted. He even said his home is my home now and wants to clear out some old things to make me feel comfortable. Joyce, how could you not appreciate such a good man?" The photo showed Michael, oblivious to my absence, tenderly making Mary's bed in our son's room. In the corner, my son's portrait lay shattered. Even the sandalwood urn was knocked over. Mary had taken a close-up and sent it to me. I quickly took a cab home. Opening the door, I smelled food. Michael was busy in the kitchen wearing an apron. I rushed to our son's room, finding it spotless. The glass shards, the urn, everything was gone. My son's last traces in this world had vanished. I clutched a photo of my son, smiling so brightly, looking healthy. But in the end, his body was so mangled the mortician couldn't even stitch him up before cremation. He's gone, and keeping these things is pointless. It's better to clear them out. The room looks so much better now, doesn't it? Clean and tidy. Seeing my silence, Michael sighed as if making a great concession. "If you really mind, I'll clear out the study for Mary. Her house is seriously damaged, and she has nowhere to go. Please understand." With tears in my eyes, I slowly stood up. Holding my son's photo, I left in despair. Days later, Michael called me from Mary's phone, informing me they had booked tickets to the Maldives and needed help with the luggage. I agreed without hesitation. I also called a large group of friends and relatives. Some came to watch the drama, others were disappointed in me. I smiled faintly. Michael is loyal and righteous, fulfilling a friend's wish. I must support him. I had prepared a special gift for them. The next moment, Mary's husband, Jack, appeared before them. Everyone gasped in unison. Chapter 5. Among the friends and relatives, many knew Jack. Mary's eyes were filled with shock. She trembled, pointing at Jack, unable to speak. Michael's reaction was even more comical. Nervously, he withdrew his arm from Mary's waist, his face tense with fear. "Captain. Honey, you're back?" Mary finally recovered, stepping forward to embrace Jack, but he avoided her. Jack's face darkened, glaring at Michael. "Looks like you found yourself a new husband." Michael awkwardly smiled. "Captain, what are you?" Before he could finish. Smack! Michael's right cheek bore a fresh red handprint. Jack had slapped him. "Michael, I told you to take care of her. This is how you do it." His eyes shone with a fierce light. Friends around began murmuring. "It's more than just care. He practically treated her as his own wife." "Yeah, there are videos of them embracing. So shameless at their age." Every word reached Jack's ears. One slap wasn't enough. He clenched his fist and punched Michael several times in the face. "This punch is to teach you to be a decent person. Stop coveting others' wives. This punch is for being a lousy husband. You can't even take care of your own wife. What kind of man are you? This punch is because I just can't stand you. Go to hell. Several of Michael's teeth were knocked out, leaving him defenseless. Until Mary screamed. Stop, honey, you're going to kill him. Jack finally stopped. I'm sparing you to cheaters today. It's not like that, honey. Let me explain. Jack left, and Mary hurried after him. Only Michael remained, sprawled on the floor, looking like a stray dog. Onlookers took out their phones, laughing and sharing photos in family and social groups. This is what happens when you covet another man's wife. Michael staggered up, pointing a finger at me. This whole farce, did you set it up? You conniving woman teaming up with Jack to deceive me. I remained indifferent, raising my voice to ensure everyone heard. What did I deceive you about? Didn't you covet another man's wife? Weren't you planning to take her on a tour of China? Didn't you spend our son's compensation money on her treatment? Shut up. Michael's eyes blazed with anger. For the first time, I publicly exposed his dirt. He always cared most about his image. Joyce, how can you slander me like this? We've been married for over 30 years. Don't you know who I am? Ha! I sneered. Pulling out the prepared divorce papers, I slammed them on his head. Once we're divorced, you have nothing to do with me. Chapter 6. I never saw Michael again after that. With some savings, I rented a small apartment. I finally got the dog I always wanted. Michael had always hated dogs, complaining they were smelly and ate too much. Now living alone, no one could criticize me anymore. Life felt peaceful and content. Today, I went to the market to buy my favorite ingredients for a feast. As I climbed the stairs, a hand grabbed me from behind. Turning around, I saw Michael with bloodshot eyes. He was holding a basket of mangoes and a bag of shrimp. His eyes, no longer fierce, were now cautious. Joyce, are you getting used to living alone? If he had called me by that name before, my heart would have melted, and I would have forgiven him for anything. But now, I only felt deep disgust. I pried his hand off forcefully. Don't call me that. It's sickening. Perfect timing. Let's go to the civil affairs office and finalize our divorce. Michael's face changed. I won't agree to the divorce. Never! You've been my wife for decades. You're the only one I recognize. Have you forgotten the vow I made at our wedding to be with you forever? We had no dowry or gold jewelry at our wedding, not even a banquet or wedding photos in that remote county. A simple promise from Michael had bound me for over 30 years. I felt resentment for my wasted youth and sorrow for loving this man for so long. There's no way I'll easily divorce you. I've consulted a lawyer. I'll sue you. Every penny you spent on Mary, I want it back. Mentioning Mary, his feigned gentleness vanished. This is between us. Don't take it out on an innocent person. What, did she dump you now that her husband is back? Hit the nail on the head, Michael frowned and stayed silent. The only reason he'd come to me was because Mary no longer wanted him. He tried to show off the items he'd bought. Michael, we've been married for over 20 years, and you don't even know I'm allergic to mangoes and shrimp? The only two things I'm allergic to. I even ended up in the hospital once. You probably bought these for Mary. She didn't want them, so you brought them to me. I turned to leave, but Michael clung to me like a leech. How could I forget? I'm just getting old. Next time I'll remember. Please, come home with me. I promise to treat you well. Just then, his phone rang. Seeing the caller's name, his face lit up with joy. Mary, why are you calling? What? Jack wants a divorce. Okay, I'll be right there. My eyes filled with loathing. The man who promised to treat me well changed his tune in an instant. Joyce, I have something to handle. I'll be back soon. I'll be back soon was a phrase I'd heard for over a decade. He never had to choose between Mary and me because he always chose her. I used to wait hope, but now I felt nothing. I opened the door, closed it. My dog eagerly welcomed me, licking my hand. See, even a dog gave me more genuine affection than Michael ever did. Chapter 7. That night, just as I was about to sleep, my dog started barking fiercely at the door, sensing something unclean outside. Peeking through the peephole, I indeed saw something unclean. It was Michael. He was knocking on the door repeatedly. Joyce, I was wrong. Please let me in. I bought your favorite food and wine. Let's have a drink, okay? I ignored him, but he knocked even harder. Even my neighbor across the hall texted me, asking me to keep it down. With no other choice, I opened the door. In an instant, my dog rushed forward and bit Michael's pant leg. Startled, he kicked at my dog. You filthy animal, dare to bite me? I'll get rid of you. My dog whimpered in pain, looking so wronged. I couldn't hold back anymore. I raised my hand and slapped Michael hard. He looked at me in disbelief. For decades, I had pampered him, never letting him cook or do laundry, treating him like a child. He couldn't believe I would hit him. Tears welled in his eyes. You hit me for a dog? He's not just a dog. He's my family. And you're more like an animal. Get out. If you bother me again, I'll call the police. Panic flashed in Michael's eyes. He quickly put the wine on the table and barged in. Seeing the half-eaten cake on the table, he awkwardly scratched his head. Joyce, I'm sorry. I forgot today was your birthday. It's not too late. I'll light the candles and celebrate with you. No need. Someone already celebrated with me. It was my upstairs neighbor, Sam. He was the one who rented me this apartment. We were from the same hometown and shared interests in chess and dancing. These past few months, we'd gotten along well. Michael thought I was lying and scoffed. I ignored his mockery. What? Has Mary dumped you again? Otherwise, why would you be here? After being her lapdog for decades, you were so close to getting your dream. Then her husband came back and you were out. Don't you find yourself pathetic? Michael cleared his throat, trying to hide the deep sadness and longing in his eyes. Mary said Jack would only reconcile if we cut ties. She had no choice. I understand. I was speechless. He was abandoned by Mary but still spoke so affectionately, like a saint. What a thick-skinned person. Michael lit the candles, holding my hand excitedly, singing the birthday song softly. The last time he celebrated my birthday was right after I gave birth to our son. Back then, I was overjoyed, looking at him with love. A small cake was enough to make me feel like the happiest person in the world. But now, I felt nothing but disgust. Years ago, Michael went all out for Mary's birthday, booking a hotel, arranging banners, and preparing lavish gifts. Drunk, he held Mary's hand tightly, spilling his heart. Mary, if I hadn't married Joyce, would you have been mine? Compared to you, Joyce is dirt, and you're a star. I've never loved her. Thinking about coming home to her face instead of yours drives me insane. I stood outside, tears streaming uncontrollably. When I found him, he and Mary were passionately kissing. My so-called happy marriage crumbled. I realized then that I was the clown, the unwanted third wheel. Michael, did you really think I would forgive you? We're done. Leave. Chapter 8. Michael blew out the candles, his eyes red. He tried to look pitiful again. As I reached for my phone to call the police, Sam walked in. Joyce, why didn't you lock the door? I heard noise, so I came to check on you. When Michael and Sam locked eyes, Michael's rage flared up. Who the hell are you? Sam, tall and strong, looked down at Michael. I'm Joyce's boyfriend. I have every right to kick you out. Michael flew into a rage. I'm her husband. Who the hell do you think you are? If anyone's leaving, it's you. Get out of our lives. Sam knew about my failed marriage and my scumbag ex-husband. He put his arm around me protectively, saying, I'm Joyce's current partner. Why wouldn't I have the right to kick you out? Michael's face darkened. He pointed at me. Joyce, no wonder you wouldn't come back. You've been seeing another man. At your age, how can you be so shameless? Come home with me. Don't embarrass yourself. The same words apply to you. I stood on my tiptoes and kissed Sam. Sam smelled faintly of flowers, and his lips were soft, his stubble not prickly. You can kiss and hug Mary in front of me, but I can't be close to another man? Michael, stop being a hypocrite. Do you think I still love you? Sam is richer and more caring. Anyone would choose him over you. You're just upset because Mary dumped you. You need a housekeeper to wash and cook for you, to do your laundry. You want to go back to being the pampered one, but it's not happening. You wretch. Michael's face turned red with anger. He raised his hand to hit me, but Sam swiftly intercepted, knocking his hand away. With a steely gaze, Sam grabbed Michael by the collar and lifted him off the ground. Michael, powerless, dangled in Sam's grip, his feet kicking aimlessly. Sam opened the door and tossed him out. Clutching his throat, Michael started coughing violently. Wait, I'll call the police and have you arrested, you bastard. Sam laughed, pulling out his police badge. I am the police. His eyes gleamed coldly. You broke into my girlfriend's home and tried to hit her. How about I take you to the station and discuss your crimes? Michael backed down immediately, leaving with a parting threat. You'll regret this. As he fled, Sam's hand rested gently on my shoulder. I blushed, pulling away slightly. Sorry, Sam. I only kissed you to get rid of him. Don't take it to heart. Sam chuckled. I understand. I smiled gratefully, turning to go inside. Then Sam's deep, warm voice reached me. But I meant what I said. I think we have potential. You can take your time to consider. Time reveals character. He said this, blushing, and quickly left. I stood there stunned. Sam was a good man. His first wife, also a police officer, had died in the line of duty. Her loss was a lifelong sorrow for Sam. He remained single for years, showing his deep love and loyalty. But I wasn't ready to start a new relationship. My marriage with Michael had left me scarred. Chapter 9. In the following days, Michael wisely stayed away. Sam and I continued as we had, something more than friends but not quite lovers. I wasn't in a rush, nor was he. We had time, and as Sam said, time reveals character. In my 50s, I no longer yearned for romance. I found a job as a dorm supervisor. Being around young people reminded me of my son. I was kind to them, and they responded with sweet smiles, often leaving treats on my desk. I could live a fulfilling and exciting life alone. I hired a lawyer and formally sued Michael. The lawyer said with evidence of his infidelity, I had a strong case and shouldn't worry. I didn't need to collect evidence, it was already all over the internet. But before the verdict, Michael was hospitalized with severe injuries. Turns out he kept pestering Mary, and she secretly met him, trying to have it both ways. One day, Jack found out. His temper flared, and he attacked Michael multiple times with a fruit knife. Each attack was aimed to kill. Michael was rushed to the hospital, barely surviving. When he woke, Mary, wanting to protect her husband, produced Jack's medical diagnosis. She claimed his brain injury from years ago had caused mental illness, asking Michael to sign a waiver. Michael fainted from rage. Hearing the news, I felt a strange calm. Karma had finally come. Good deeds get rewarded, bad deeds get punished. It's not a question of if, but when. I visited the hospital, seeing Michael lying weakly. His eyes lit up when he saw me, muttering, Joyce, I wronged you. Will you forgive me? If you forgive me, I'll recover. I'll do all the housework and take care of you forever. I threw the divorce decree on his bed. Without a backward glance. Behind me, Michael sobbed bitterly. I knew he wasn't remorseful, just dreading his miserable future. Mary's life wasn't easy either. Jack's emotional instability led to frequent altercations. Their affair now public, the community and online comments vilified her as a shameless homewrecker. Her once shining reputation was destroyed. But that had nothing to do with me. I bought a chicken and Sam's favorite wine. Today was his birthday, and I prepared a feast. Sam arrived with a smile, accompanied by a young woman. It was his daughter, Sarah. Sarah was friendly and helpful, assisting me with the preparations. Around the table, with hot dishes steaming, I felt a sense of home again. "Aunt Joyce, you did a great job. Have some more." Sarah sweetly offered me food, her bright eyes reminding me of my son. I couldn't help but tear up. Seeing my tears, they panicked, rushing to comfort me. "What's wrong, Aunt?" I smiled, wiping away my tears. "Nothing, it's just been so long since I felt this happy." The end.